Thank you very much. Let's just start with the rand. I mean, an hour before the announcement, when speculation was very rife that President Jacob Zuma was about to reshuffle his cabinet, we saw the rand plummeting between 3 and 4%.
Yes, and after the announcement, it plummeted another 3 to 4%. Yes. So the rand is down about 6% at the moment. Yeah.
Is it at all surprising that the rand would plummet at the beginning, before the announcement is made, and even after the announcement is made?
No, it's not at all surprising. The fact is that Pravin Gordhan was seen as the bastion of resistance to the perceptions of corruption and nepotism and patronage within government, and therefore whoever would replace him, unless it was someone who was very closely aligned to Pravin Gordhan, it would elicit a negative reaction, and that's what we have seen.
And speaking about him being the bastion, we saw that also play out at the Kathrada funeral, where the director of the Kathrada Foundation asked him to stand up, and he got a round of applause there, a standing ovation there. And one then wonders that considering this cabinet reshuffle, that President Jacob Zuma has now brought in Malusi Gigaba to replace Gordhan. Malusi Gigaba obviously being an experienced person within the executive, as Palisa mentioned earlier on, having served in 2 ministries, public enterprise as well as home affairs. Do you think that the markets would then welcome such a move, that you are bringing in somebody who's experienced?
From the point of view of bringing in someone who's experienced, yes, it may be of some use, but the fact is that his record as Minister of Public Enterprises and subsequently as Minister of Home Affairs, insofar as what happened to foreign tourism is concerned, have not endeared him to the business community at all. And so I don't think this will be a very popular appointment.
Would that be because of his lack of experience within the economy, within the business sector?
No, not at all. It's just that public enterprises performed very poorly under his ministry. To some extent, the management has actually even improved slightly under Lynn Brown, which tells you something. And secondly, as Minister of Home Affairs, he introduced some draconian requirements for foreign tourists to visit the country, and that had a very negative impact on foreign tourism in 2015. And we have seen now he was forced eventually to rescind those laws. So despite being warned against introducing them, he went ahead and introduced them, and then was forced to claw back on those. And since he's clawed back, foreign tourism has boomed again. So clearly it cost the economy dearly.
All right, let me just bring Professor Sepe back to the conversation. I mean, we've heard the President saying that these changes bring some younger MPs and women, of course, into the national executive in order to benefit from their energy experience and expertise. Do you think that's what we need right now?
Well, that's why I was saying that if you look at this, you can look at the issues of administration, which, as I was just mentioned in terms of the history, but they also have to factor the issue of political consideration. I mean, if you listen to young people, the ANC Youth League, and also remembering that we're a youthful country, they are actually quite happy with the appointment of younger people in the
Malusi Gigaba being the former ANC Youth League
and also he's a former. So effectively, it's almost rewarding young people for having remained loyal to the organization. So there are positive spin-offs, and let's not pretend that the idea of a finance minister, South Africa is divided on that. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you can find people in a funeral exploiting that space does not mean that outside there are people who hold that view. So we must also come to terms with the fact that there were divisions. There are people who are also economists who actually have called for the minister to be axed. And you cannot have a situation where these political tensions between the minister and the president continues. And actually, even the very same rating agencies have been complaining that you guys must sort out these political tensions. There must be political stability. So, and the president has also a right to invite in his space people who he's not going to second guess whether these are people who are going to be stabbing him. What we also must understand is that either we change the constitution, but the constitution simply gives the president that prerogative. But what we seem to have is that we want it to be there when it's convenient, but when the decisions are made. And in politics, this was a political decision, and of course we must also accept that wrong political decisions also have consequences. So it will depend on whether this will work for the ANC or not. But what is most important is that there must be political stability. You cannot have an executive that is actually divided, because the very same market will be will be telling you that it is not on.
Sorry, Palisa, just quickly on that point, speaking about political stability, and you look at the finance ministry, for instance. Over the past 2 years, we've had 4 ministers, and I'd just like to have both of your views on this. Does this really point to stability? 2 years, 4 different ministers.
Well, the fact is that there was stability prior to the firing of Nhlanhla Nene. Then we had a period of great instability over a few days. Then we've had a period of relative stability. The fact is, you're quite right, we're changing finance ministers frequently, but in the intermittent period, we've had relative stability.
Professor Sepe, your point?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think there must be an element of honesty here. We've had, and the very same rating agencies, the very same people like Azajamin have been complaining about the tensions. Actually, the media, I mean, we talked about, if you looked at the media last week, the whole checkmating. And if the president had not acted, you know what the media will be saying today? That the president has no longer power, he's simply a lame duck president. And that will also create another stability. That what you have is that the president is actually run by the markets. So there are these political considerations that needs to be looked at. But what is most important is whether we want to be part of the solution or whether we want to dip in the crisis. And I think there are so many people who are invested in the regime change agenda that they would also want to have more degradation of even our rent, because what it will do, it will add fuel to the regime change agenda. But what I'm also saying is that this is a political decision triggered by political events, and there will be political consequences. Whether it will lead to the president being removed or whether it will strengthen him, only I'm not going to be able to guess that. But the long and short of it is that we've had a situation where a minister of finance was seen to be at loggerhead and encouraged to be at loggerheads by both the media and some analysts. But there are also analysts and other economists who hold different views. So we must accept that people can honestly hold different views in this country and not demonize those who hold a view that is different from ours. That's what democracy is all about.
All right. Dr. Jamin, what's going to happen now in terms of our rating standings with the rating agencies?
I think there's a very good chance now that the ratings agencies will revise South Africa's credit rating down to sub-investment grade, mainly because of the perception that the new government committed to radical economic transformation will not abide by the prerequisite of trying to limit the rise in the public debt. And they will see this as heightening the risk that South Africa's solvency as a country will start being impaired. Because what do we mean by radical economic transformation if not significant spending on trying to uplift the masses of unemployed persons and providing them with the goods and services that are required? And the moment we do that, we run into huge constraints in terms of our ability to pay for that.
Well, after these headlines, we're going to need to unpack exactly what radical economic transformation is and whether Malusi Gigaba is the face of radical economic transformation. I just want to make the comparison after the headlines is you have the president punting a radical economic transformation, and then you have land redistribution, but you have Gugile Nkwinti, who has clearly failed, but he still remains in that ministry.
All right, it's time now to take a look at how the headlines are looking this morning. And of course, in breaking news this morning, President Jacob Zuma has sacked Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and made 10 new cabinet appointments in a dramatic midnight reshuffle. President Zuma has also moved several ministers to different portfolios, while there are some new faces. The late-night move caused a sharp drop in the value of the rand as investors reacted. Gordhan was replaced by Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba after a months-long battle with President Zuma over government spending. In a statement, the president said that the changes were to ensure that the promise of a better life for the poor and the working class becomes a reality. Despite strong speculation that President Jacob Zuma would rid his cabinet of SACP members, Higher Education Minister Bladin Zimande has been spurred, along with Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davis and, of course, Economic Development Minister Ibrahim Patel. The ministers who lost their jobs are Minister of Finance Pravin Gordhan, Transport Minister Dipuwa Peters, Energy Minister Tina Chumat Peterson, and Public Service Administration Minister Ngwako Ramatlhodi. In a surprising move, Zuma did not take action against Batabile Dlamini, who is the Social Development Minister, following a scathing Constitutional Court judgment against her. The President gave new portfolios to Tula Singlesi as the Sports Minister, Fikile Mbalula Police Minister, Malusi Gigaba Finance Minister, Nathi Nhleko as Public Works Minister, and Minister Faith Mutambi now going to the Public Service in Administration portfolio. And now in some news, the police are maintaining a strong presence in and around Sandton. This after one Uber taxi was torched and several others stoned yesterday amid an ongoing dispute between Uber and metered taxi drivers. More than 2 weeks ago, metered taxi drivers blockaded a major route near the OR Tambo International Airport as they protested against Uber. On the other side of town, Uber also marched to their own offices, demanding that the company intervene. Tensions reached a boiling point as drivers from the two sides clashed in the heart of Sandton. All right, and those are your 6:30 news headlines. A full update of news coming your way at the top of the hour. Let's quickly take a break here on Morning Live. When we come back, we continue our discussion with Professor Sipho Siepe and Dr. Azwa Jamin in relation to the reshuffling that took place in the United States.
President Jacob Zuma says that the country's security agencies will seek new and more effective ways to fight crime.
Crime, as you would appreciate, depends on the circumstances. This narrative that South Africans are xenophobic, we don't necessarily agree with it.
This group of Bangladeshi shop owners ooze frustration. They've lost everything.
I'm like totally destroyed. I can't see what I'll do, where I'll go.
Rescue workers are still searching for the body of a 5-year-old boy who fell into an old mine shaft near Boksburg in Ekurhuleni.
Tensions remain high, with thousands of community members refusing to clear the scene until the boy is found.
In 2013, there were similar disturbances at this very facility. And it would seem to me that this time around, the same issues that led to those disturbances are still prevalent.
This time around, funny enough, the 26, 27, 28 gangs ganged together and attacked officials, which is for us something that is very abnormal, and it has never happened.
Almost 23 years into our democracy, we are still confronted with a system that is as violent as in the dark days of apartheid.
The Department of Correctional Services has transformed from a prison system to a correctional system.
I've been arguing since time immemorial, and it doesn't help. When you argue with facts and you speak truth to power, justice and authority, then you are seen as being arrogant and confrontational. I came here because I've been around the block many times, and Mr. Modise is a seasoned correctional officer. He knows exactly what is going in there. He knows exactly what needs to be done. And he knows for the fact that the Department of Correctional Services can't do it all by themselves.
Technology is all around us and some can't live without it.
There's also the problem of internet connectivity.
I was speaking to a robot.
It also makes a few governments panic, and therefore they block the internet from time to time.
They just ban the internet, which is the source of my livelihood.
For African technology and social media news, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
right, welcome back to Morning Live on SABC2 and SABC News Channel 404. Of course, we'll still continue with a broadcast in relation to the cabinet reshuffle that happened last night or in the early hours of this morning. I do know that a lot of us never got to sleep a little because we've been waiting in anticipation to see what the president has in store. All right, you can become part of the conversation and discussion here on Morning Live. Send through your tweets at Morning Live SABC and we'll be able to take a look at your tweets. While we already have some of your tweets, let's take a look at what you've got to say to what happened last night. All right, the first one from Ndokozo Magasela. Currency is just power gains by those who run the economy. Investors want Pravin Gordhan for their interest, and that should be questioned. All right, we'll put through that one to Azad now. And another tweet from Jafta. Congresses and movements and never sleeps. Midnight is when tables are turning. I suppose, because we never got to sleep as well. Morning Live, you must be ready for this blow. Oh, yes, we are. We certainly are. Tyson writing to Morning Live, SABC, we really don't know where we stand as foreigners, as now there's a new Minister of Home Affairs.